I don't know what happened.
Sandile for Sandile.
Sandile to Sandile. Good afternoon, officially. My name is Sandile, and thank you very much for the wonderful and insightful presentations. My question is in terms of outcome reporting for each of the C20s and Oxfam, or like C20, V20, and Oxfam. Is there a place where we can access like the work that your working parties have done after the G20? That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have the other mic?
My question is directed to Oxfam. And your emphasis on fighting poverty, economic equality, inequality. I want to check how many families control the world in terms of wealth? How many families control the wealth of the world? Thank you.
It's okay. Third question, thank you.
I didn't get your name.
It's Tabia Tesan.
Okay. You know, I'm just interested in finding out. I'm Professor Matole Mutsehe, professor at UNISA, Law Faculty, and professor at Nelson Mandela University. You hear from the universities that I come from. I never heard about your initiative, but I heard you saying you are involving academics. How do you identify those academics? Secondly, you talk about a values charter. I'm just wondering, what more values can we find in the world except those that are in the Constitution? And you are also talking about dignity. I thought dignity is inherent in Ubuntu. Now you say dignity and Ubuntu separated. I thought that Ubuntu is the fountainhead of all values. Lastly, the majority of the people in this country are led by traditional leaders, royal leaders. How do you access them, the royal leaders? And the majority of the religious leaders are African spiritual leaders. If you take the Khanyani alone, he fills the stadium. All the mainstream churches can fit into that one. Are you involving them? In short, are you involving the royal leaders and the African spiritual leaders?
Question number 4.
My name is Salim Wang. Professor Matsela, thank you very much for mentioning the issue of Ubuntu. I also believe, I totally agree with you that it should be the overall way we do things. It should not be just one of the values. We should be informed by Ubuntu, and out of Ubuntu should flow many bullet points about application. You speak about. So the question is, I hear none of you mention civic education. We want to do things for people. I think that what we lack in South Africa is, for levels of civic education are real. We need to give fishing rods to South Africans, not more fish. And I totally agree that we must go back to the Constitution, look at what we already have and see where we have failed rather than start over somewhere else. These are amazing initiatives. How we really need to find a way to align them. I'm going to stop, but don't worry. And to Oxfam, you said something about tax justice, and you asked who must pay more tax. You know, two things. Sometimes even Thabo Mbeki talks about leakages, money going elsewhere. We don't talk about money being stolen in South Africa. Especially when there are government officials, we are afraid to talk about corruption. And this is very frustrating. Right? Why are we not talking about creating an environment for investments to come here and stay here? A lot of times we allow many of us to scare away investors. And then we say we want investment, we want job creation, we want all of that, but we scare them. The language that we use every day says you are not welcome. Maybe we should talk about it. We should also talk about many, and I will not stop saying this, many of the criminals who are today walking the corridors of the parliament, who are responsible for state capture and other forms of corruption in this country. You guys who need money to do all the beautiful things that you want to do should be saying that money, let's talk about opportunity cost. Let's talk about all of that money that has gone somewhere. Even today, people steal money. I don't hear you guys saying, please stop. That money could be used to do this for leaders, for women, I don't hear that. We don't connect the dots. You guys should be on to speak about corruption. Corruption is hurting the country. Big time. This country has got lots of money, or maybe it had at some point. Great institutions that have been massively destroyed. Money has been stolen. I went to the delivery of the budget last week in Cape Town. All those state capture people are still walking around with their chins up. They go past the 10 stars run by policemen. Nothing touches them. And when they come here, some of them are going to stand up and sing with them and want to take pictures with them and to toy with them and be on Instagram with them. So we need to look into the mirror. South Africans need to look into the problems hitting this country are not out there, they're here. We can't keep demanding from the world and not talking about our obligations towards our people and the world. Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions. Thought-provoking. I'm loving it. I think the first question was, how can the general public access our work, right? The work is currently in production, so it's not completed. But if you go to the website www.values20.org, you will find the work of all the other countries, the 4 countries that have had V20. All their work is on there. And as soon as we've completed ours, it will be on there. We're also available on social media if you want to know what we're doing on a daily. You can find information there in terms of the engagements that we're having, the people that we're pulling in. There's a lot that's happening, especially on LinkedIn. You'll find some of the work that we're doing. There was a question about the Values Charter.
Say, values charter. Are the values in the... Do you need a values charter? Are the values that are in the Constitution not enough?
I do believe that they're enough. I really do. But are they lived? Are they embedded in our society? No. People look at the Constitution as something that gives them right to this, right to that, but nothing about agency and commitment. How do I make sure that I play my part in getting the future that we want realized? So, and this is purely my opinion, is that we look towards the Constitution when we want to defend our own space or our own being. But very rarely do we talk about the Constitution as a values document. So, in terms of, I think I already shared that we are contributing to the Constitution review, right? And part of it is, how do we make values alive within the Constitution? They might be there, they might be on paper, but how do we bring them to life and ensure that they're implemented? Why we talk about a values charter, it's because we believe that that document must be created and co-created with everyone. People must input into it and thus buy into it in living it. The Constitution, while it is a powerful document, seems far removed from our daily lives. And we're looking for a document that people can identify with and say, I was part of this process. I gave my input, therefore, this is my document, and I want to live it. So that's what we want, because the Constitution currently is a document that we throw around when we're fighting. The question about dignity and Ubuntu being the same thing, yes, that's correct. So one of the discussions that we had at the media launch was South Africa operating on very Western principles, corporates operating on Western principles, excludes Ubuntu. It excludes Ubuntu. So the culture created by the Western world excludes Ubuntu. And our response to that is the two can coexist. They're not mutually exclusive. And so we thought it's important to elevate Ubuntu to a point where it becomes an ethos that will be embraced by everybody. And then when we talk about dignity, it's more of a posture that we want, where we say we want dignity in work, in work, the work that people do must have dignity. People must earn money in a way that their dignity is not lost in the process. So it's very much a lived experience, an individual lived experience. And then Ubuntu as a collective and a philosophical positioning of society. I hope I've answered that question. Prof, I need to say that you're correct. When you talk about traditional leaders, engaging traditional leaders, engaging African spiritualists, we haven't begun to do that. We haven't begun to do that. And thanks for sharing that with us. And I always need to be cautious when I talk about the work that we do, because we're constantly talking about, guys, let's be careful not to want to boil the ocean. We've got 1 year to do this. Let's not try and do everything, because our efforts are going to be too scattered. So how I see us taking this forward is in collaboration with engagement groups such as IF20 to make sure that we are aligned and that we impact and input into the work that is happening here, as opposed to trying to do everything and spreading ourselves too thin. I think it's common knowledge that our engagement streams are not funded. We run on zero budget. So we've got to be careful about how ambitious we get and what we can achieve, given the fact that everything that we do is from our own pockets. And the organizations that we work for, the organization that I work for, is paying for this time when I'm sitting here discussing V20 issues. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge of how far can we spread this thing? How ambitious can we become? And how much time do we have? And how much resources do we have to deliver on this particular mandate? I think I've covered all of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Difficult questions. So maybe first to say, as Oxfam South Africa, we do engage on the work around anti-corruption on our work stream that looks at just and accountable governance. But I also do feel that the same critique can be said about how we focus on government corruption and not on private sector corruption. And how, being a billionaire and this is a values thing for me. Being a billionaire in a world where people are struggling to eat is a form of lacking values and morality. And how do we begin, if we are not going to talk about the theft, historical theft that has happened within countries and between countries, right? Because there is no, and this is my personal belief, there is no working so hard that you are a billionaire in a world where people that work hard every day struggle to eat. So there's a critique to be said to say, how do we begin to level the playing field so that people aren't so wealthy in a world where others are so poor? So how do we begin to critique the immoral nature of the inequality that exists in our country and in between the global south and the global north? So I feel like when we address questions of inequality, we have to also speak about how wealth distribution is a matter of justice and a matter of values and morality as well. And if we do not engage in terms of how we begin to redistribute and distribute wealth in a way that leads to dignified existence for everyone, we are missing an important part of the conversation around inequality. And for me, that is where we enter into the conversation to say, what does redistribution of wealth in a way that everybody can live in dignity look like? And of course, we have to critique government corruption because it exists and it has led us over the past 31 years to where we are now. But how do we begin to balance that critique with the critique to say, how do we live morally in a world where so much inequality exists? The question around who control or how many families control, I don't have the stats. I mean, in my head, I'm thinking of 10 families in the world that really are viewed to be very wealthy and control the world. But I think for me, the crux of the matter there is that, 10% wealthiest families in the world own more wealth than the 90% poorest people in the world. And for me, that is something that we need to grapple with. And we need to come up with mechanisms to say how to begin to address that vast inequality. Questions around civic education. We want to sort of engage at community level, and we've begun to develop materials that engage in terms of civic education. But I think we've begun to also take a different posture in that while we know certain things, we understand that the lived experiences of our people also teach us something. And how do we begin to share that knowledge in ways that improve our policies? In ways that take into consideration daily lived experiences of people. So we engage in terms of the information. What is the G20? How can people engage in the G20? We're developing materials with regards to that. But the hope for us is that people's experiences also teach us what it is that we need to be taking to those policy discussion spaces and the policy packs of the C20s and them. So our engagement is at that level to say, what are we missing as NGOs and civil society? What are our blind spots and what do the lived experiences of people teach us in terms of how we can shape policy in ways that will bring meaningful change to the lived experiences of people? And so that's why we want to do the roadshows and go to communities. And my brother, to go to your question and build up Butsandile, is that of course, like Sisi said, our work is in our websites, but we are also very interested in partnering with people in communities on the ground to say, how do we partner together and begin to do the work that is meaningful for your community, of course, where there's alignment in terms of interests and areas of work. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with you, Sandy. Yeah. C20 is continuous. So you say C20, you get all the information of the previous ones up to today. We also now have developed, we're developing our own content. We are platforming it in various platforms, social media. We have got all social media, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, you name them, it's called X now. You name them, we have got a presence there. But I mean, there's also communication strategies that we are developing. There's communication strategies which are C20 communication strategies, but there are others in partnership, including with government, including with other engagement groups. So I think the information is already quite available out there. Now, I think Prof, we just have to declare it because on our daily lives, we have got Contralesa as our member. It's our member. In fact, there's another breakaway from Contralesa that is, in fact, applying. Yeah, Rolesa. Rolesa is applying to be our member. It participates in our forums. Of course, it's difficult when it comes to kings, the royals. But we are getting access to them via, like, the Contralesa connection. So we can't claim that we have got direct communication with the kings in South Africa. So, but the voice, so in this case, in fact, Contralesa is contributing in terms of shaping how C20 gets to rural areas. It relates also to the question of civic education. With us, there's 52 districts in South Africa, and we already have designed programs to reach 52 districts at minimum, at district level. And we are hoping that at district level, our own organizations, because they've got presence, civil society has got presence every nook and cranny of South Africa. We're hoping then that they will actually be able to cascade even further to neighborhoods. So that's that's a message that let's get to neighborhoods. There's two parts to it. There's part where we are actually providing civic education, but there are parts where basically we are getting positions from people because they are not unknowing and they are not without a critical contribution to make. So, those are, on content, I think the area on creating an environment for investment, it's not just actually, it's not about maybe opening ourselves up, because we have, I sit at NEDLEC, and I've been part of the budget dialogue in South Africa with all the assumptions in the budget. For the past, since 2013, we've been having a budget dialogue. So there's a lot of stuff that is not about us. Creating an enabling environment. South Africa created an enabling environment for investment way back. But there's things that are going wrong even when we have created that we are actually declaring, like right now. Last week, Friday, we were coming from an engagement with the minister. And amongst us as social partners, us as community, as well as labor, we have declared that business is in an investment strike. And we have a problem with that. That they are in the investment strike, and we are showing the things that they've demanded over years and what we've done. So I think that a C20 platform is creating an opportunity for us to take stock of what we've done and what we've got right, and what we've done and what we haven't got right. There's a partnership around C20 that Labour 20 and C20 has created. We've been having conversations for the past 3 weeks. The focus on just energy transition has been focusing on the sunset mineral called coal. And there are sunrise minerals that we are seeing even in things like new energy vehicles, your palladiums, all these. So with Labour, we are now, and government in the focus on G20 has got critical minerals. But we are now actually making critical minerals also an issue for the people as well for the unions. So what we are then saying is that in this process, of course, there's every other country which has got progressive civil society. What they've done is to try to influence G20. But they've also left things for the program design in their own countries. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're also doing. Yeah. This is not about us being excited by the fact that we have got a global platform, but it's actually utilizing the global platform to reorganize ourselves, but also like to even build relationship across the continent of Africa. And in our program designs going forward, we will be basically making these things an issue. And in fact, there's already a lot of interest that is being shown in trying to influence how we shape. So it might not be upfront that we actually have got a very clear position on creating, enabling environment for investment. But it's also about like Africa is a richest continent naturally. Why is it poor? So those are conversations we're having. But why are we betrayed by our political leadership that continuously also take decisions that are anti-Africa's people? So there's various conversations that are, and what we are excited about is the fact that it's not Nhlanhla's views up front that are going to be expressed. We are creating a platform in which the entire civil society of Africa will emerge with positions that could even lead to solidarity in action.
Tell me, what time is lunch? I won't be too long. I think to know a bit more about IF20 and where we stand, I will encourage you to go onto the website, which is g20interfaith.org. And on there you'll have all what we are about. And as you know, we are building up towards August 2025 for our main conference, our main gathering on IF20. And you would find on the website what we are planning. You'd also find on the website our 5 priority areas that we have underlined that we think is necessary for us as South Africans, but also as Africans to address as IF20. So I encourage you to go onto the website and read more about who we are. But having said that, statistics have shown that 83% of the world's population are in one way or another religious. And when it comes to Africa, that percentage goes up. As a matter of fact, we estimate it could even be up to 90%. So our continent of Africa is about 90% religious. And if we are, and I think this is a challenge to all the other 20s, we strongly feel that religion plays a significant role in every facet of a human being. It undergirds, it underlies the concept of ethics. It underlies and tends to answer the question of who I am, why am I on earth. It also undergirds and underlines how I should behave, how I should think at times. It also underlines and undergirds the issue of education and civil society, of how we handle our finances, if we ask a question about corruption. I think religion and faith in one way or another tends to help us understand that. On what basis do we base this on? We normally say a human being is a religious being, or some will say a human being is a spiritual being. What does that actually mean? Think about how you think. How you think about what you're going to do next. What undergirds your thinking pattern and your thought patterns. You would find in most instances is something which was handed down to you either ethically or through your religious and faith beliefs.